yeah, this is definitely up there. It would have to be a 9 or 10. I mean, you do those ones for 24 hours, you do the ones for 4 or 5 or 20 Ks, and you get a good night's sleep at the end of it, and you can have a rest the next day. But when you start doing things for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then have a very, very hard day on day 5, and you know you've got to get out of bed for it on the 4th night, you know you've got to get out of bed at 5 o'clock, and you know you've got to walk 50 or 60 Ks, those sort of thoughts that come to your head and the doubts that go through your minds, that makes this one of the toughest things. So definitely up there. When things get hard, there's always a way around them. When things are hard, there's friends to rely on, there's help there as well. When things get hard, and whether that's from a professional point of view or a work point of view, or a physical point of view out there, there's I think that's what I'm taking away from the outdoor myself. And the memories, definitely the memories. Those are some of the most fantastic things you can have.
Are the memories like red wine in a bottle? Do they get better with age?
They definitely get better with age, but the lessons you learn from those memories will always stay the same. Or maybe they do get better themselves as well. Maybe the lessons get stronger when you sit back and reflect on them time after time. I think you remember the hardships that other people go through too, and you remember the things that took them to the next level. And you remember the things that made that person who was doing it tough, who didn't think they could make another step, who didn't think they could get up that hill. You remember what made them get to that and what type of a person they were to be able to make that change. And initially I found that very hard to do. Initially I wanted to step in and just direct them a little bit more. And I found it very hard to take that extra step back. But once you do, it's amazing the amount of change that happens. It's amazing that the growth that they go through. It's amazing speaking to the students afterwards, how they actually felt when they knew they were on their own, how they felt that their decisions were real. They just didn't seem real, but they were real. They had to decide which way they were going to go. They had to decide whether it was left, whether it was right, whether it was up, whether it was down, how to get around this hazard. And we were always there, but we were definitely there in the background, and probably a lot more so than what they thought, but their decision was real. They had to make that decision for themselves. I think our styles are a little bit different. I sort of come from the school-based, where most of my experience is where teaching 14-year-old boys, 15-year-old boys, as opposed to university students where you have to let go a little bit more. And sometimes I find it hard to do that. But the more practice I get, the more enjoyable I find it. And I think that reflects in my facilitation techniques at the end and bringing out about those changes and speaking about those changes. The students at university have more depth in their answers and more meaning, I think, that comes from here. And they're able to speak about their experiences and therefore bringing about or facilitating those changes or those experiences is a little bit different for me. I think I know exactly where it is in my house, and when I've moved I know exactly where it is, and I do flick back to it every so often when I go to that drawer, when I pull out in that drawer on my desk, and I wouldn't say there's an exact time that I flick back to it, but when I see it I open it up and I read the comments that I wrote, and I read the comments that you wrote in it, and I read the warm fuzzies that the other students wrote about me. And I think that smile and those memories that flood back in straight after that is special. No one can take that away with me. Those memories are unique to me, and the lessons I learnt from those memories are unique, but it's fun to sit back and talk about them and dream about them. The memories, I think you remember the hardships the most. You remember the fun times and you remember the hard times. And it's amazing how after a while the two sort of interrelate, and the hard times become the fun times, and the stories you tell from them, while you say what happened, they definitely become jazzed up a bit, and I think those are the ones you remember the most.
They're definitely euphoric when they finish, but I don't think they've distilled what the impact that walk will have on them until maybe a week, month, even years later when they reflect back on it. And you'll see in this video with the students' comments that reflection assists the learning experience, and with time to ponder on it, the pain fades, but the memories remain, and that's probably the most important factor. And not only the memories, but the achievements become greater in their mind. But at the end of the day, if they make a silly decision, it's all about life ownership, and they've got to own that problem, and they've got to get themselves out of it. And it's very different to how it operates in a school, because you will generally have someone shadowing, and we don't shadow as such. It's hard, yeah, and each year I'm so glad that they make the finish point, because if they didn't, and there was some sort of case, lawsuit or whatever, then I think my style would have to change. But for the moment, it suits what my purpose and goal is, and I'd never want to take that experience away from the students, because they get so much out of it once they're put in charge and they have to own their own life.
Experience for the students.
From the very outset, I'm mindful of telling them that it's not a walk in the botanical gardens with a marshmallow roast at the end, that it's very much about delving into their inner resources, and when they hit the wall, they're going to have to find something deep within themselves to get them over to the next hurdle. And there's many metaphors for life that we draw parallels from. Because they're PE health students, I'm also mindful that they're usually the strongest in teams, or they've gone through life with prowess and physical aptitude, but this is all about finding themselves being the weakest link at some point in time, and what it's like for people to ask for help when they're down, whether it's emotionally, physically, psychologically, or whatever barrier they've hit along the way. So yeah, it's a big wake-up call, but it is also a rite of passage to their teaching career, because they'll all be out teaching at the beginning of the next year.
Yeah, I think there was about, it was about day 3 when my knees were really hurting a lot, and I thought I was really contemplating giving up, but as I went along, the further I got, I think after day 3 it got a lot better, and by the end of it it was great. We were really enjoying ourselves, but in the beginning it was a little tough. Absolutely. I think there were points where I don't swear very often, but I was swearing up the mountain, and I was thinking, I don't want to be here, but looking back, I wouldn't have changed it for anything. It was definitely distance has made the heart grow fonder over this. It was good. They were great. They didn't help us a lot, which I think is extremely important. We're trying to learn how to take kids out to be able to take hikes ourselves. And if they were always saying, oh wait, hang on, this is how you navigate, this is what you do, I think that's a dopey way of doing it, because this way it was sink or swim, but we did kind of swim because we had to rely on each other, and I think we learn a lot more doing it that way than if they had have stopped us at each point saying, okay, this is how you do it. I think it was great. Their method's fabulous. I expected to get a lot out of it. I didn't expect that it would be nearly as hard as what I found it to be. I expected, great, we're going to have a fun walk, we've got our packs, but that's all right. But I didn't expect mountains like this the whole way, so that was a bit of a shock. That's a hard question. If I was to do it again, I'd have to put in a lot more training. I probably wouldn't do that hike again, but I'd love to do something for the same duration, maybe in Tassie or somewhere else. But yeah, I don't know that I'd do that exact hike again, because you can't match it. It was amazing the first time, and I kind of like to leave it like that. No, I didn't, which it probably would have helped a little, but as Tonia says in the classes before we go, you can't be told what this is like. It's an amazing experience, and it's really hard, but it's great. I wouldn't change it for anything. Sure, yeah. I was talking about it today. It's amazing. For me, I hadn't done a lot of hiking before I went out, and I feel like I've really accomplished something. It's a huge thing, 135 or however long it is kilometres. I feel really proud of myself, and I'm proud that I didn't stop halfway through and that no one let me, so that was good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know what else I could have done to prepare more for it, but I think just the intensity of it, I think you just had to do it. I don't know if there's any more preparation I could have done. Just had to experience it, I guess. I think that was the one thing that I felt like I had to do. I had to prepare if I was going to do this. I had not done much bushwalking at all beforehand, so I was kind of going from level 0 to level 15 in one step. So I did some just hiking up Mount Kira and practicing with a pack and stuff like that. And mentally, I think just kind of getting used to what it was going to be, getting used to the idea of what it was going to be like, meeting with my group members and talking about it. Some of my group members had gone through a lot of bushwalking before, so they kind of knew what was going on a bit more. So got updated that way, I suppose. Yeah, I did actually. I prayed during it a lot. It helped a lot, actually. I just needed time to kind of regroup and think and be by myself at times. Excellent people, and I loved being with them the entire time, but I just needed times where I'd kind of go off and be by myself just a bit to kind of regroup and to pray, and so that I found that hugely helpful. I think that was probably my main kind of thing that evened me out a bit and made it all right. So, yeah. I think that different styles of leadership are effective for different groups of people and for different goals, different purposes. And I think that Tony and Wayne and Tiger think that the strategy or the style that they used was really effective for the group of people going, as well as for what purposes this hike kind of served. So I think it fit really well, actually. I think that there was times when, if they had been babysitting us and watching after us so closely the entire time, we wouldn't have made mistakes that we did, and I wouldn't have learned from those. I think that I've made some mistakes on that trip that I will never repeat because I made those. I think also, I think that if they would have been there kind of guiding us the entire way, we wouldn't have learned to kind of draw from one another, draw from each other's strengths in the group. And so I think that was huge, that we were able to what's the word I'm looking for? Just able to really grow to our full potential as group members, I think. One of the main things in that letter for me was just, we were writing that letter as a year later, what are your thoughts now that you've gone through this? And one of the main things for me was I want to live life fully. I want to have an adventurous spirit. I want to get out there and do the things that seem tough and seem like I can't do it initially. Kind of just a spirit to go out and to conquer and to do, not necessarily to conquer, but to just live fully in that. And so I think that this trip was huge in that, and that it really did give me kind of confidence that, yeah, like if you stick with it and if you keep pushing, you can do it. And not just to grudgingly go along and to get it done, but to enjoy it when you're there and to have a lot of fun with it and to take that challenge as an exciting step, not something that you have to do. So I think altogether, our group was just excellent at taking care of one another and looking out for one another. And there's times when I would come into camp, we'd be the last group in, and people would already be getting me a cup of tea and offering me their leftovers afterwards. And I think that was just a reflection of kind of how everybody's attitudes were. They were definitely willing to and wanting to help out and to look after one another. So yeah. Actually, that was one thing that I was really excited about on this trip. I really wanted to get to know some people in that kind of situation when you're put in the middle of nowhere and you're dependent on these people. You've got to get along with them, and you've got to learn to enjoy one another. And so that was really big. That was one thing that I was really looking forward to, and I feel like that is maybe the greatest thing that I came away from the trip with, was just the friendships and enjoying those people and appreciating them. They're excellent, and I think that there's times when someone would wake me up in the morning, I wouldn't enjoy them as much as later on when I got into camp or something. But in general, it wasn't too much of a roller coaster just because they were so easy to like and so wonderful. So it was wonderful.
Bit like it.
I think initially I was expecting it to be hard. I was expecting it to be a tough time, and I was expecting to have a lot of fun. I don't think that I expected near the intensity that it was. It was about 10 times harder than I would have imagined at all. So that was big. That was probably the most different thing that I expected, was that it was just a lot harder than I ever imagined. But yeah, other than that, it was about what I expected. My concerns, I think, were I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to contribute to the group. I didn't have any huge navigational experience. I wasn't the buffest person in the class, so I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to contribute. So that was my main concern going in, I think. I think a couple thoughts kind of come to mind. First, I think I had to learn lessons of depending upon people during that time. I got sick throughout the walk, and really having to be okay with saying, I need your help, and I can't do it without your help. So kind of learning to be dependent on other people and learning that was okay, and that everybody can give and contribute in different ways. That was big. But most of all, when I think of that, I just think what excellent people. Just Rob and Chad were just phenomenal, and that they had such strength of character and such desire to help and just willing to really serve. And I think that time is just a good representation of how the whole group was the entire walk. So yeah, more than anything, it kind of puts an awe in my heart about how great they are. So it was a roller coaster for me. There was days when I was on top of the world initially. When I woke up, I thought I could conquer anything. And 2 hours later, I was as low as I could be. And then another 2 hours, I was feeling great again. And that was kind of a physical thing as well as an emotional. I got sick off and on throughout the trip, and so I'd kind of go back and forth a lot. And so it was, not only was it intense, but it was intense in both directions of really positive and really negative, kind of all wrapped up in the same time. So, yeah. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I think that it was kind of a rite of passage kind of time. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I would love to do it again. It was something that when I was there at the time, I was thinking, I hate this, I can't believe I'm doing this sometimes. And then other times I'd think, yeah, this is pretty good. But when I look back on it, I would absolutely love to do it again. I think for me it'd have to be with those same people, just because they have such a unique spot in my heart for that trip. But I would definitely recommend it to someone else if they're up for the challenge. If they are looking for those things that come from a trip like that, then go for it. It was so good. It was excellent. Yeah. I think too, just that it was such a big goal for me, because I hadn't done anything like it before. Just my personal desire to say this was so hard, but I stuck with it and got through at the end. But I think I remember there's specific mountains where specific people would come along and just encourage me to go up or go down. And if those people wouldn't have come along, I don't think I would have been able to make it up through that section. I think too, just having campfires to come into at night and just to be able to sit down for the first time all day and have some dinner was huge. So.
So, yeah, I felt like opting out because you just felt you couldn't walk any further. But if you just stick to it, it'll be all right. Yeah. Me personally, probably I just see that as such a huge achievement. From other people's perspectives, it's sort of just gone unnoticed. But yeah, I know that I can do that now, and that's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So it's pushed my boundaries out a little bit further to know what I can do, which is probably life-changing. Yeah. It sort of doesn't hit you straight away what you've done. Like, you're just so tired and just so drained in every way. You sort of just want to sit down and you also want to talk to other people about it, what you've done, but they just can't comprehend it. Unless you've done it, you wouldn't be able to comprehend what we've done.
It just sounded kind of like a marshmallow roast in the Blue Mountains, and so we went into the first class, and I thought it was going to be a good time. I thought it'd be difficult, but not anything too bad. And then Tonya told us the length of the hike, what would be expected of us, and my perspective kind of changed. And it wasn't for the worse, but I realized I had a lot more to do for that class and get myself ready for it, physically and mentally, that I hadn't given much thought to before. So that was the big part. And I also would argue that mental prep on the hike was just as important as the physical ability. Like, I'd go up Mount Kiara with Steph or with Katie, and to get ready physically, but in the end, on the hike, on the tough days, day 5, day 2, it was the mental stamina and the mental strength that got us to the end and to camp at night. So, the food planning, that was a good time. Making our check markers, it was all part of it, but the mental part, just realizing what was about to happen. Even still, you couldn't do it until you finally got on the hike. You really didn't know. You knew it was going to be tough, but until you were climbing up that ridge on the 5th day or climbing Mount Strongleg, it didn't really sink in of what was about to happen, what you're going to undertake. Just the way the leaders, Tonya and Wayne and Tiger, handled the hike and let us make the mistakes. I really wasn't, I shouldn't say prepared, I really didn't think they would be that detached from the group to it. I mean, I knew we had to make our own decisions, but, and I'm speaking for the American education system here, the critical thinking is just not there in the education system. You don't have to learn to think. Teachers teach what's going to be on the test, or they teach you what to think. And in this situation, we had to critically think. I can remember a couple different occasions where we'd be having a tough navigational decision, and my initial instinct was to get fidgety and look around and want Tony or Wayne to be there to tell us which way to go, like that. And I realized now, at the time and now, how stupid that is. And once we stopped and stepped back a bit and looked at the maps and checked our notes and talked about it, we were generally right. We still made mistakes, but we were able to figure it out, and we could do it, and we had to learn how to think. And when it really hit home was day 5. We were all in camp, but Rob's group was still out, and Robbie was an amazing navigator and taught me a lot on the trip. And so I was a bit worried because I knew how good of a navigator he was, and they were the last ones in, and they had been ahead of us all. So we were all standing around setting up camp, and it was dark now, and I didn't know, were we gonna go look for him, what was gonna happen? And Tonya and Wayne and Tiger, they were just calmly cooking dinner, sitting around the fire, and I was getting nervous. I didn't know what they were doing. We were gonna look for him, and then eventually we saw Rob's lights, and they came in, and they told us that they were going to let Rob's group stay out there that night, that they knew where the water was, they had maps, they had compass, and they were going to let them figure it out. And that was really remarkable to me, that they were going to let them spend the night not knowing where they were in that situation. They trusted them that much to make the right decisions and to be able to figure it out, that they were going to not know where that group was for the night. And I thought that was really remarkable, and it just shows how much we had to make our own decisions and think for ourselves on that hike. And I take that's one of the biggest lessons I take with me in every day, and that you don't always have to ask, you always just step back and think for yourself and critically think, and that was amazing to me. It was just one small section, one small slice of the hike that you see on that video. That's 10-20 seconds out of 6 days, and during that entire period of time, everyone is helping everybody else out. Everyone's got high and low points. That was one point where Rob and I were able to help Katie out physically, but that you don't see the other times where I would be tired or exhausted, and she would come into camp at night with a smile and that voice of hers, and that would just lift me up. So, and like I said, I think the mental was almost, if not more important than the physical part of it. You know, you just see that one little part of the hike, but that just does not even do justice to the amount of times everyone helped everybody else out. That I can understand why it might look like that, but that's just one little section, and it's not any more important than any other part of it. Actually, yeah. A couple of ways. Number one, I had done hikes before, but nothing for this length of time. And being out there for 6 days and then coming back and seeing McDonald's in the commercial world, it was all really ugly. And I had a hard time relating and adjusting at first, being back in that. I didn't really know what to do, you know, like you emerge from that environment and that setting, and you develop this cohesive bond with this group of people that you really didn't know well before, and you're all together all the time, and then you come out and everyone goes their separate ways, and you're in this giant world again, peddling you food and merchandise and stuff. And I had a really hard time with that. And along those same lines, Tony warned us that people would not be able to relate to the hike and what we had gone through on the hike. And I knew that, but you still can't prepare yourself for it. I can remember walking home from the Wollongong pub after they dropped us off, and I saw a couple of friends, and they're like, "How was the hike?" And I was like, yeah, "It was good." You know what else could I say? That I was, for that length of time and that period and the people I met and what we went through, it was really unexplainable. And that was kind of weird, because that was my life. You were so immersed in that. That was everything you did for that entire week. And then you sum it up in the word, you know, it was good. It was a lot of fun to those people. They need to know, like, that it is physically challenging and how demanding it is. I know we had the debrief the week after the hike, and I think the attitudes are changing now that it's settling for a while, but some people weren't happy that they did it. They didn't realize it wasn't going to be that difficult, and they weren't happy they did it at first. I think most of the attitudes have changed now from what I've heard, but people just have to be aware, and they have to get themselves mentally and physically ready for it. Otherwise, it was a suffering experience for a lot of people. And but I loved it. It pushed your limits. I don't think anybody could say that they were 100% good all the time, either mentally or physically. There was always a challenge for everybody on that hike, regardless of your abilities. And there was definite ups and downs. There was more ups for me, just because I love to be outside regardless. But there were some definite down points too that I can remember. Day 5, day 4 was a tough day, even though that was supposed to be our easy day. And the patience I was mentioning, if we have a tough navigational decision, I mentally would start to panic a bit. That's my gut reaction, and this hike was unbelievable in helping me to get over that and to just sit down and analyze the situation and talk with the people. Day 2, after Strong Leg, so much emphasis was placed on climbing up Mount Strong Leg that once you got to the top, you just felt like the day was over. And there was still a good 2-3 hour hike after that over some pretty difficult navigation, and that was really disheartening. We got to the toughest part at the end, and I was beat, and Des and Allie kind of took it in, and I definitely needed some help at that point. I just wasn't ready for that because so much emphasis was placed on strong leg, and that was partly my own fault that I didn't know the navigation as well to know that we had that much hiking to do after strong leg. And day 5, the descent to camp at night after hiking for 12 hours, and feet were hurting, and the ridge was so rocky, and the feet were just sore, and Des kind of kept us going. He kept people leading, he kept us on track, and those were the 2 times I can really remember being down. Like it was okay, but I needed some encouragement. Otherwise, I don't know, I was just ready to have a break and sit down and maybe camp there for the night. It was getting close. It wasn't keeping going. It wasn't overcoming the physical pain. It was overcoming my own mental obstacles for me in the context of the group. We did the evaluation of people's personalities in the first class, and it was DISC. It was director, which is outgoing, extroverted, and that was Des. And then the influencer, which was Allie, kind of outgoing and extroverted in that she was able to round people up. But I fell into the conscientious category, which is introverted and task-oriented, which tends to be more quiet, but you just kind of go about and you get the firewood, or you make sure people have enough water, things like that. I don't tend to be vocal, and so I was more task-oriented and focused on what needed to happen for the next day, and that kind of goes along with my impatience thing. I wanted to have enough stuff in place as physically possible to minimize my own stress and what might go wrong. Because physically I handled the hike okay, I think, but mentally it was a challenge dealing with just having the patience. I tend to get impatient if it's getting dark, or we might not be sure of a navigational decision. My gut reaction is to get impatient. We couldn't in that circumstance, and furthermore, I didn't know the people as well. So that was right on. The journals, I think, were an extremely important part of the hike, before and after, and just being able to articulate your thoughts. Like I said, I heard outdoor ed and hike, fun, but when you realize how much introspection there is that goes into it, how many other factors there are that you don't really see until you start writing them down and organizing your thoughts. And I think unless you're writing them, you don't really have that organization. You don't really see how much there is involved. That was extremely important, and just as important as the hike itself. So Steph and Allie and I did the planning, and we'd get to know each other emotionally a bit, but it's a lot different talking to someone about the hike over a cup of coffee than it is, if you're cold and wet climbing a mountain. There's a lot of different stuff you don't find out about people till you get in that situation. So that was a big, I remember writing about that in my journal. That was a big worry for me, that I didn't know how I was going to react. I tend to get uptight in those situations and not react really well. So I had to prepare myself to be able to sit back and relax and take it a day at a time, an hour at a time, a minute at a time. And that was the biggest challenge for me.